You ready?
Ready whenever you are.
Well, I just wanted to...
Say they're ready?
Go. On behalf of Michael's family, welcome. By your very presence here today, you show your love, not only for Michael's family, but for Michael himself. And he's the reason we're here today, to celebrate his life. And we celebrate by saying goodbye. And that's what we're coming here today to do. But not goodbye to the memories, not goodbye to the love, but we say goodbye so that we can solidify all that Michael meant to us. We say goodbye knowing that one day, we'll be rejoined together. And so, by your very presence here, you acknowledge that, and the family thanks you for your presence, knowing that Michael has touched your life in one way or another. And so we thank you for your presence here today. We also thank all those that are live streaming today also. Sciume picked out a couple of verses for us to listen to, so that we might be encouraged and not lose heart in times like these. Lamentations 3:31-33. For the Lord will not cast off forever, but though he cause grief, he will have compassion according to the abundance of his steadfast love. For he does not afflict from his heart or grieve the children of men. And then Revelation 21:1-4. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, Behold, the dwelling place of God is with men. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain, for the former things have passed away. The family put together a eulogy, and a eulogy of those things that I think endeared Michael to each one of us, and I think sums up our love for him. Dad relished the good things in life, including music, dance, photography, food, and family. Dad's love was unconditional, and his sense of humor refreshing. This was something the family cherished from his character. Dad was the best father and friend anyone could ask for. He was even a father figure to a lot of other people, too. Dad once told me that at the beginning of his treatment, he would look out the window and look at the almond blossom and was worried that he wouldn't be able to see the next season. That was 2 years ago. The strength of character was his mainstay. He was very proud of his Sicilian ancestry and could be very persnickety when it came to how one should eat pasta. He was insistent that one should not use a spoon when rolling your spaghetti onto your fork. That's what the bottom of the plate is for. So remember that next time you scoop some spaghetti together. A conversation with him was to journey any topic and discover details and information that no Google search could ever match. He knew something about everything. His enthusiasm for learning was inspiring. I remember being so impressed with how he knew and learned about his health and fight with cancer. His Chinese medicine research, the teas he would brew, his eagerness to do anything he could to heal. Also, if there was a right way of doing something, anything, he knew it and did it with exactness. He was a very smart and clever man, was never afraid of having a laugh at his own expense. He modeled humor, strength, and love right up to the last of his days with us. So at this time, there's several that are coming up to share some memories and stories and things that endeared them to Michael. And we're going to start off with Darren. Okay. Todd sent a letter. Todd was a dear friend of Michael's, and he couldn't make it. He's stuck up in Canada because they won't let him get across the border. But he did send a letter, and this was the letter he wrote. Dear Brother Michael, some of my fondest memories in this life are because of you. Our 40 years of friendship started in Rancho Seco nuclear power plant and never ended. Over the years, we have shared successes and failures that forged a bond of strength, trust, love, and respect at a depth that only a handful of people in life have been worthy of. I have always been proud of and thankful for your presence in my life. Michael and I took a travel call to Chicago in 1993. Michael was teaching country western dancing at the time, for in fact, he danced in every honky-tonk in the entire state of Illinois and did not miss a day of work, even if we had even if we only had time to drive back to Juliet and go straight to work. We carved out a reputation of producing beautiful workmanship in record time and made lots of friends in Local 17. Brother, your laughter was infectious. You graciously shared your knowledge with those that asked. You were always kindly there and eager to help. You were always a friend. You will always be my brother. For the duration of my time left in this world, I will carry the torch on your behalf. Safe travels until we meet again. You will be missed. Brother Todd. At this time, Chris, if you'd come on up.
Hello, my name is Chris Graney. I work for Local 16. Many years ago when I first met Mike, I wasn't working for Local 16. I was working in Local 16 as an apprentice. First thing I'd like to, Mel Brashears, who's our business manager of our local union, where Mike had been a member, regrets that he couldn't be here today, so I just kind of wanted to mention that. I've known Mike, so I go back, I think I was a third-year apprentice, so it was 30 plus years ago I met Mike. I can't remember if I met him at a meeting, because he was at a lot of meetings, especially the Sacramento meetings, and I immediately liked him, like anybody else. You know, met this guy, he's a journeyman insulator, you know, would always talk to you, always had something to say, had a great sense of humor. Our sense of humor was kind of alike. And when I worked with him as an apprentice, he was always there to lend a helping hand. I learned a lot in the time that I spent working with him. He let me know that I will need to teach somebody else someday. That was something that he really expressed out there. He encouraged me when I was getting ready to take my journeyman exam and gave me some good pointers, which really helped me because I was really nervous to take my journeyman exam, and I was working with him at the time. He was able to give me really good pointers, and I really appreciated that. Hearing Todd's letter, it kind of makes me laugh because I remember, and I'm really grateful I was able to help these guys. I was born and raised in Chicago. My father who had since passed, at the time, Chicago had a lot of work, and in '93 there was a lot of guys out, and the first guy I thought about calling was Mike, because I knew he was out of work, and I was grateful that I was able to kind of make a phone call and arrange things. This is before I was an officer. I was just a guy working in the field, but had an opportunity I think we ended up sending about 20 guys out there. And then, you know, and I heard the dance stories, which I wasn't surprised because I knew that, you know, Mike was really like country and western music and stuff. We ended up working together, traveled together to different jobs, got to know each other. We both like music, especially blues. You know, I play in a blues band now that Mike definitely think that that's pretty cool, you know, because we used to listen to a lot of blues and stuff, and we used to travel back and forth to work. It was a pleasure to work with him and to be with him. Mike had a way to bring people together, whether at a job site or a meeting where we had differences or disagreements. He would speak up and get everybody focused that we were all brothers and sisters and that we're all in this together. You know, he had a way of kind of bringing everybody kind of back to focus of what everything is about. It was for that reason that, you know, I actually appointed, you know, Mike on a big job as a steward, and he did a really great job, and it was a difficult job. We had an out-of-state contractor that was really kind of a screwball contractor, and every day we spoke because there was some kind of issue to take care of, a lot of payroll issues and stuff like that, and Mike did a fantastic job, and we laughed about it because it was a tough job to throw. It was like throwing them to the wolves on a job like that, you know, to be steward on a job. You know, he said, we're all in this together. You know, there's no I, there's only we. When Mike expressed an interest in being a teacher at the apprenticeship school, I wasn't at all surprised, as he had a natural ability. He really enjoyed teaching. I learned a lot from him in the field, and then as he became a teacher, I got to see him more because we had, you know, worked together, been around each other for a long time, but then he was in the school and I was a business rep, so we got to see each other, and it was really grateful for that. And I just want to kind of close here, is that, you know, when I think of Mike, and I kind of wrote this down yesterday, I can see him smile, and it's exactly how I picture Mike, like in this picture here, is that when I think of him, and that gives me a warm feeling in my heart. I'm truly blessed to have known him. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Bill Hodges. I'm the president of Local 16. I'm also the apprenticeship coordinator. I have too many stories about Mike to tell today, and they're all good. But I met Mike about 20 years ago. I never worked with Mike in the field. But somebody one time said, "Hey, you want to be an instructor at the school?" Okay. I met Mike. Mike taught me how to become a good instructor, told me how to handle apprentices, taught me what it took to be an instructor that they would look up to and that they would respect. And so I enjoyed that. I taught for 7 years, and then the position opened up for coordinator. And Mike and I both applied for it. I'm sitting there and I'm looking at Mike, and we're talking about, well, probably one of us is going to get it. I go, "Hey, Mike, even if you get it, we're still buds, man." He goes, "Hey, don't worry about it. Either way, we're good." And that was just his character. Mike had just a friendly character. He cared about people. So I get hired, and now I'm in charge of the apprenticeship program. And one of the things about Mike, he absolutely loved working with apprentices. I think if he could have done anything in this world, it would be to work in the apprenticeship program. He was terrible in the classroom. He wanted nothing to do with reading out of a book. I used to say, "Mike, we got to do the curriculum." He goes, "I'll teach them the curriculum later. Come on, guys, let's go out in the shop." He'd have a group of guys around him. He'd be showing layouts. He had their attention. At break time, I can see Mike jump up onto one of the tables and sit there, and he'd have a group of guys around him, and they'd be asking him questions, and he would be talking to them. Mike was just a very personable person. Every apprentice that ever has come through the school will probably tell you they have very fond memories of Mike, because he made it very personal and very friendly for them to be there. One of my fun stories about Mike is he'd been off for a while, and I called him up and said, "Hey, look, we got some work at the school. You want to just come in and put some hours in here?" And he said, "Sure." So they come in, and we'd bought a bunch of sewing machines. I said, "Hey, I need to get these all put together." Well, there's a video on how to put them together and no real instructions, and we got about half of them put together, and I came up and I said, "What's this piece?" And he goes, "Well, that's just the guard for the belt. I'll put that on after we put the belt on." And we discovered that you couldn't put the belt, you could put the belt on, but you could not put the guard on. We had to completely disassemble all of the sewing machines and start over, because that had to go on first. And we just kind of looked at it. He just looked at me and said, "Oh crap." yeah. So it was fun. And but one of the last, towards the end, he wanted to come in and teach. I saw him come in, even though his health was failing. He still came in and taught apprentices. He wanted to be there, and I could see that it was starting to take a toll on him. I said, "Mike, you need to reevaluate this." But I was at a conference many years ago now, and I got to hear the speaker, Mike Luttrell. If you've ever seen the movie Lone Survivor, he is the lone survivor. And one of the things he said at this conference that really has stuck to me all my life was, he stated the fact that why guys don't do this, he never knows, but they never say, "I love you." And this guy, Mark Luttrell, held one of his best friends in his arms until he died, and never said, "I love you." He said, "That's my biggest regret in life." Well, towards one of the last days he was at school, I remember I went up, I gave Mike a big hug, I kissed him on the forehead, and I looked right in his eyes and said, "Mike, I love you." So I don't have that regret. And he looked at me and back and said, "I love you too." And so if I was to leave you with a thought, it would come out of John the 14th chapter, and if this will open up for me, because I don't want to try to read it by, come on. This is 14, the 1 through 4. It says, "Do not be worried and upset," Jesus told them. "Believe in God and believe also in me. There are many rooms in my Father's house, and I'm going to prepare a place for you. I would not tell you this if it were not so. And after I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to myself, so that you will be where I am. You know the way that leads to the place where I am going." In verse 4, it's not a question, it's a statement. We all know. We know the way that leads to the place where I know Mike is right now. So we just all need to remember Mike, remember him fondly. I'll always have cherished memories of Mike, and I am looking for the day to where I stand with my brother again, kiss him on the forehead, and say, "I love you." Thank you.
Derek?
Try to do this without crying or thinking too much and being too loud or too quiet, but can you guys hear me from here? Okay. I was thinking, last couple weeks, what to write, what to share about Dad. Excuse me, I'm very nervous also, so give me a second, but really it only came down to today actually putting words to paper, because I don't want to keep you guys out here too long talking about my experiences and my life with him, because each of you had a different experience, but some of you may know him as a friend or a teacher, maybe through religion, but only I and a few people in the crowd knew him as a father. Obviously, I'm one of his sons. Sorry. But this is what I wrote. Many children see themselves in their parents, and the same goes for parents with their children. It's one of the few pure natural gifts we give. We give as well as receive. I was so fortunate to get a few of my dad's beautiful gifts. His love of music, Dad's love of music, is something I've had inside of me I'm sorry. I've had inside of me since before I knew what memory was. I mean, that young. Music is part of me, like my father is. Dad and music are intertwined permanently inside of me. When I play the guitar or sing when I drive, which he did all the time, or when I dance alone with my kids, or in a crowd of people, I think of Dad. I think of him. His confidence when dancing in front of anyone gave me the confidence in myself in so many things in life, not just dancing or expressive forms, but teaching what I know in my trade to other peers and colleagues. It wasn't that he didn't care. He just he loved music so much, and he knew it connected him to so many other people that seeing that as a young boy and in a family full of girls until Michael finally came around, to see something like a connection with him in music kind of pushed me in a direction to find some sort of connection and release or solace in music. So Dad was caring, he was loving, he was very sensitive when he needed to be. He was very strong and stern in teaching moments. But Dad had just a great way of getting his point across, in teaching or in scolding you or, reprimanding you. I mean, at least when we were older. He didn't make you feel dumb or, unable. His temper with teaching was totally different than in other situations. I'll just put it that way. He was just very calm, and when he had an objective to show you something or teach you something or help you learn something, if he didn't know how, he was just very good about admitting that he didn't know everything. That was something just very special about him. I review my life with him while he was here, and I see such a evolution of the person he was, and how he was as a father when I was young and how he was at the end were just completely different people. And I mean, that shows that he really did the work to find out the type of person he wanted to be, the dad he wanted to be. So I look up to that a lot, to admit when I'm wrong and try to become a better father and a better friend. I think of him mostly when I'm creating, when I'm building something or repairing something or making something more beautiful. I mean, his love of landscape and detailing cars when I was young must have imprinted on me, because those are two of my favorite things to do. But he was a great teacher, he was a great father. And that's what I'll remember him as. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ray Pagtalonia, and I'm a friend of Mike's that I met at work years ago when Mike lived in Reno. We'd been friends for a few years. When I first met him, I didn't think that we'd ever grow to be the friends that we ended up becoming. I didn't know how much we had in common. I didn't know he was a Christian. I knew he was an insulator like me. He was very good at his job, and he knew how to be a good friend to people. He was very kind. It was later, as we got to know each other, that both of us went through just the normal things in the industry, where we work and we're busy, and then we get laid off, and then we're not working. And we found that, we found that we were always encouraging each other on those times when we went through rough times. And we always prayed for each other. And that, I think, really was the foundation of our friendship, was our love for God and our love for Christ. And even when he struggled with his cancer, I knew that it was important for me to continue to remind him about God's love for him and God's mercy and what we have to look forward to after this life. And that's what we talked about most of the time in the last few years. And I'm going to miss him. He was one of my closest friends. So this is my daughter Layla. And we're going to share a song about God's love. You never change. You are the God you say you are. When I'm afraid, you come and still my beating heart. You stay the same. When hope is just a distant thought, take my pain, and you lead me to the cross. What love is this that you gave your life for me, and made a way for me to know you? And I confess you're always enough for me. You're all I need.
I look to you. I see the scars upon your hands and hold the truth. That when I can't, you always can. I'm standing here beneath the shadow of the cross. I'm overwhelmed that I keep finding open arms. What love is this
That you gave your life for me, and made a way for me to know you? And I confess you're always enough for me. You're all I need. Jesus, in your suffering, you were reaching. You thought of me. Jesus, in your suffering, you were reaching. You thought of me. What love
gave your life for me. You made a way for me to know you, and I confess you're always enough for me. You're all I need. What love is this that you gave your life for me? It made a way for me to know you, and I confess you're always enough for me. Always enough for me. Always enough for me.
This time Glenn will come up.
Hi, I'm Glenn, also known as Glenny, and boyfriend. I'm a good friend of Mike's. As Bill said, a brother. He was a brother to me. And while I was considering what my purpose would be today, of course it's to honor him, that's why we've all gathered. In the Old Testament, there had to be an agreement between believers before a thing became legitimate or became a thing. If we look around, we're in agreement of suffering such a great loss as a friend such as Michael. I have a lot of stories about Michael that would explain to you what he means to me. I don't think any of the Sciume children ever asked me why I was their dad's friend. And I think that's what I'd like to explain if I can make it through. In this atmosphere that we live in the United States right now, with the division that we're suffering through, it's shameful that the generations that are coming up behind us even have to deal with it. The reason I'm bringing that up is because it was like that when I was an apprentice. It was really hard for me, being a person of color, navigating my feelings, much less how people accepted me. I met Michael in '83 on a job site. The mechanics at that time, they weren't sure if you were there to take their job. At least that was the impression that I got. And so they wouldn't necessarily, that was where you would learn, get your experience from. You can learn in the classroom, but that's where apprentices got the meat of their learning. And my experience is that nobody really wanted to teach me anything until I met Mike.
He saw that, and he took the time, and I've heard it. He took the time to show me even the right way to burn a wire. And they know what I'm talking about. He stopped long enough to show me. I found myself in a situation where I was being accused of something, and I think it was because of my color, and Michael came to my defense on the same job, and he didn't know me. So my purpose today is for the Sciume clan. What Michael did the day he met me was honor his daddy, how his dad raised him. And if there's any closure that you need to take from today, is to remember to honor him in how you behave, how you treat one another, how you treat your neighbor, how you treat yourself. Darren said something about when his dad was instructing you. I'm older than him. I was older than him. But he was like my dad as well. We lived together for a while, and there was something that I did that wasn't very manly. I was still being a little boy, and he pulled me to the side and instructed me. And it was harsh, especially coming from somebody younger than you. But I saw his love for me in that. That's why I was his friend all those years. That's why no matter what he asked, whatever he needed, I was going to be there for him, because he was there for me. I'm so glad to see so many people loved him in the manner that we should, because he just brought love. That's all. It was love. And I believe he got that from, I think it's in your DNA. I'm pretty sure it is. So honor that. And you guys are terrific people. He married a terrific woman. And I'm going to close. There was something my wife asked me after we were married. She said, how did you know when you were going to ask me to be your wife? And we were sitting and sharing a tuna sandwich in a restaurant, and I looked at her and I realized that that she was a safe place for my love to land. That was it for me right there. I knew that I could love her as hard as I could love, and I'd be okay. And that's my relationship with Michael. He always had nothing but open arms for me, and I could be who I needed to be with Mike. And he was like that with everybody that's sitting here, whether you knew it or not. He was like that. His love was he was a safe place for your love to land. Thank you.
Hello. Sort of nervous too. One of the things I was afraid was going to happen was everyone's expressed the thoughts I had. So how do you start this? One of the things I'd like to say right at the beginning is something Mike asked me to say to all of you here on early February, when I was there at his home. I wrote it down exactly as he asked me to express it. My family, they will never know the depth of my love for them. They can't. How do you express that? To the friends that were my true friends throughout my life, I treasured you
and knew who you were. For the people that I journeyed in my career with as my brothers and my sisters, you treated me with great respect, more than I deserved, and you gave me the camaraderie that takes away the loneliness in life. So to the union that I worked with for 42 years, I treasured every year of it and felt it as my true camaraderie. Glenn, I've heard about you 20 years ago. Oh yeah. All of you, the children, Talia, Aubrey, Darren, Michael, Caitlin. I knew Caitlin before she was born, obviously. It is just amazing how much I heard about you about 18 years ago when Mike and I got into families. The love and the treasure that he considered you was inspiring to me, and I like to consider myself someone who feels deeply. But I don't. If you know Mike, and all of you do, Will, you know what he's talked about. That guy felt deeper, thought deeper, and believed deeper than I could ever be. So I don't stand here wanting to praise him. That's a normal thing. We have tons of stories about Mike. But when he told me to say that back in February, I was just astounded because, as you all know with Mike, he didn't hold any grudges. He didn't hold any envy. He simply lived life to its fullest. And every day, he tried to treasure it. Yes, Darren, a lot through music. But you also knew he liked doing work. He liked producing something each day and feeling as though he was blessed in God with it. He talked about his close friend Bert and how they just could talk for hours. My wife knows that when I got on the phone with Mike, well, that was it. I was gone for about an hour to 2 hours. Isn't that true? And both the wives, Suncia and my wife, knew when we got on the phone. Well, that was it. We were gone for a little while because Mike approached me, and this is just something he said to me, but he looked at me as a kindred soul. I was honored at that because he kept putting me on a pedestal. And I'm just a regular guy. He made me feel special. And how many out here don't realize when he was with you, he made you feel special? All of us. So there is very little I can go on to about to tell you that, yeah, Mike lived, we basically lived together at different jobs, 3 months here, 4 months out there in Wood River, Illinois for Local 1, a little bit out, as they all knew Chris Greeny out there because he was like a legend to them. And then 5 months in Fernley, and all sorts of places from Berkeley to Oceano and on, we lived together. And you get to know somebody real well when, one, they're willing to clean up after you, and two, they're willing to cook for you. You know. So with Mike, it was always a challenge trying not to gain a couple of pounds when he was around, because he sure loved to cook, and I sure love to eat. So that's been obvious. But just enjoyed his company. I could go on about the hours of cribbage games, dominoes, of Rummy 500, of talking theories and aspects of what I knew in science and what he always wanted to learn, what I knew in business and what I studied in college and what he always wanted to learn. But as you well know, Mike was always willing to teach, and that's what I was so grateful for. The story I'll go to you is, I came and I left a career. I left business because it was cold. It was completely a shallow and a far, shall we say, as I've expressed to Bill Hodges and Mel and Chris, business in other areas, is extremely selfish. I'm sure you all know it. It's all about the money. Mike gave me that true love of what it was like to be in a union. What happened was I had entered the union 21 years ago, and at first it seemed distant. You're just an apprentice. No one really wants to give you much time on the job. You're basically pushed. And all of a sudden, a year later, I met someone named Mike Sciume. How do you thank someone for changing your life? Because, Bill, you don't know this about me. I was already looking to go back into business. I wasn't sure I fit in the union. Wasn't sure I was the type of guy you guys would want. But Mike convinced me, oh, you're incredible. And of course, there he is putting us all on a pedestal again, which is what he did. And you look at that, he changed my life. I was about to leave. You can't imagine the difference he was as an instructor, and Bill, you know this, compared to other instructors we had in the past. He took me in, cared for me and loved me, and changed my entire life. How do you thank someone for giving you a career that you were honored in, made, a success in? And how do I thank someone who made me feel like I was his kindred soul? I was his brother. Certainly not worthy of it, but honored to be there. So, Mike wanted you all to know that he loved you. And that was his greatest problem. You're so right, Bill. It's hard for guys to express it. We just don't. I have a hard time still expressing it. But through Mike, he made it easy. And so to this day, I changed because I met Mike Sciume. I changed for the better. I came from a cold business atmosphere in finance and retail, and this man gave me a new outlook, a new life, and introduced me to some of the finest people I've ever gotten to know in my life. Your family, right there, Sensei, all that you've done for him, just know that his love of God, of Jesus Christ, it all became a part of his life. But as he said, his children, his friends, and his wife guided him to that. And Bert and Carol, you made him feel so home here, so much love, as all of you did. So these are the things he talked about quietly in February, as he told me, I'm not going to be around here, my brother. I can feel it. I'll be gone soon. And I need you to take care of the people and let them know that I can't be there for them anymore. But hopefully through me, through others, you can know how much he cared for you and wanted to be with you for forevermore. That's all I have to say.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Tim Seitz. I met Mike in about 2007. I was an apprentice and I was just starting his class. He was living in Reno at the time, and he and another friend of mine who was in the class came out, and they were staying at my house whenever he would be in for classes. And we grew to be very close friends. We grew to be good friends. A lot of the comments I wanted to make today have already been made. I just want to tie a couple of them together. Darren pointed out, Mike was never afraid to admit that he didn't know something. Mike was as willing to learn from his apprentices as he was willing to teach his apprentices. I find that rare in our business. Very good guy. Also points out, his comment also points out that he brought what he learned, the love that he brought that he learned in his family life, he brought to the Union. And as Glenn has pointed out, we didn't run into that all the time with the mechanics who were teaching us. A lot of them were very much afraid that you were going to take their job. Glenn pointed out the unconditional love that Mike had for everybody, anybody that he taught. Chris pointed out the confidence that Mike would instill in people, and that rang true with me too. He gave me the confidence to keep rolling in this business when very often I wanted to throw it in and give it up because it's not always a friendly environment. And one of the comments that Bill made, I want to take just a step further. Bill mentioned that Mike will always be his friend. And I'll tell you that anybody who went through Mike's classes, anybody who's worked with Mike, will remember him very much the same way. They'll always think of Mike Sciume as a friend. Thank you very much.
Sorry about that. I'd like to thank you all, actually, the Sciumes, for letting me borrow him for a small amount of time. It's kind of funny, you can stand in front of 30, 40 people every week, and you can speak, and you can continue speaking for 6 to 8 hours at a time. And then I come out of here and I stand in front of everybody else. And I find myself lacking in words. Not so much lacking, maybe, but so many different things I'd love to say. I mean, luckily, I get to go number 8, which means that everybody gets to say all the hard stuff. And everybody else gets to sit back and remember. And boy, howdy are those good memories. And that's what Mike would want, is to remember all the good things. Every time he'd come over, we'd laugh. I mean, just the amount of laughter, it was fantastic. We looked forward to it. It was like, all right, the weekend is coming. Mike's going to be here this weekend. All right. And we'd kick back and relax and talk. The debates. Talking with him was like, I don't know, it's so interesting. He had so many different ideas, so many different opinions, but he was never overblown about his opinions. He was always willing to listen to somebody else's love for learning. I mean, we sat there and we would read through all kinds of different stuff for hours on end, just because, for the pure fact that we didn't know. If there was a calculation that we weren't good with, we'd go over it and over it and over it. And there was a determination for education that I loved, and he fit right there. So I'm going to keep it short and sweet. With the greatest people I've ever known. Proud to call him my friend, and proud to be here with everybody. So thank you.
It has been so much fun to listen to your stories. When you're a kid and you're Michael's kid and you feel proud and you feel interested in him and interesting to him, and you see he has that effect on everyone. Growing up, I can remember maybe sometimes feeling envious of how much he shared with so many people. But today I feel such gratitude, and I feel joy and happiness to hear your stories, for you to share them. Thank you for being here. I know there's so many people that wanted to join us today, and so seeing the new faces, people I've never met before, it's good to see your faces, even behind a mask. And for people that I've known my whole life, Glennie, someone who I think my earliest memories, you were always Glennie. My siblings, Soncia. My name's Natalia. I am one of Michael's daughters. I'm the youngest of my parents. I just, like others, want to share a few memories and just things I've learned from being his daughter. And so I know it might sound kind of silly, but I miss his hands. I miss the way they would knead bread or slice the chunks of Romano cheese for snacking. How they'd twist the dough for making biscuits, and the excess dough would be like the one last coveted twisty biscuit we'd fight over. I miss watching his hands at work braiding our hair, or watching him doodle in the corner of a crossword puzzle with a ballpoint pen. I miss his hands strumming the guitar. These are the hands that taught me how to throw a ball and swing a bat. The hands I first held on a dance floor. He would lift me up, and I'd have one arm around his neck and the other gripped to his thumb. Step 1, 2. Step 1, 2. First he taught you the 2-step, and then the 10-step. And if you were in on it, it was the tush push, the slap and leather, the boot scoot and boogie. All things that my dad loved, and he loved teaching us. He loved that he had all these little people that wanted to learn from him. I can remember his flat, smooth nail beds as he would point out each letter when I was learning to read. And he never gave me a letter sound. He would never let me move on from a sound before I got it. He trusted that I could get it right, and he'd be patient, and he would wait until I did. They were also hands of discipline, hands that would point out the mess that my room always seemed to be. The hands that would point out the exact spot on the wall where I could stick my nose until further notice. Sometimes it was the sound of his fist slamming the table when dinner got out of hand. Those hands I can remember. I could remember it grabbing my attention. I could always remember his hands. There were seasons where I didn't hold those hands, where I longed for them and I missed them dearly. Seasons of distance, but the distance never lasted long because his hands were at the center of where my heart felt most at home. My dad was the connection to Grandma and Papa and our beloved aunts and uncles. Even in times that seemed really unpredictable as a family, we would all gather at a place where we all belonged. Home is family. Home is feeling rooted and connected to one another. In inclement weather, that is life. Grandma and Papa sheltered us all. That sense of belonging kept us tethered together. And even after they passed, their legacy remains alive in each of us because of Dad. And he nurtured that connection in us. It's evident in our traditions, in our food, definitely in our stories. And it has been through the difficult seasons of life that I've learned the hard lessons that have helped those roots to grow deeper. Without those difficult times, I could have never learned the healing that is forgiveness, or the strength that is patience, or the perspective that humility offers us. The April before last, my dad and family came to visit us in Arizona. I felt then that I was clinging to any time I might have left with him. And one night we stayed up till 3 a.m., just me and him, and we were baking bread and talking and crying, which we did a lot of throughout the years, a lot of talking and crying. But this time, we have brought to light memories and vulnerabilities, regrets, and then we came to the conclusion that it was all prerequisite to what was now existing. We had arrived at a deep love and a respect for one another. We are reinforced as individuals by this connection we shared. It was his hands that pulled out his handkerchief and dried my tears that night. They weren't tears of sadness, but tears of gratitude for the road that we had traveled hand in hand. This past January, I was able to celebrate my dad's birthday together with him. It was such a gift for me to have this time to celebrate him, to be together with some of you here. I remember feeling anxious when it was time to leave. I remember the feeling of not wanting to leave, but and carrying an understanding that I might not again hold his hands in this lifetime. So I held his hands one last time and we began to pray. He began to pray unexpectedly. It was a simple prayer of gratitude for the role that he had played in the lives of his children, and a request that he would live on through the lives of his grandchildren. I'm so thankful to be the connection from my father to my children, and I hold his sacred prayer in my hands as I honor his legacy, and I hope to fulfill this request. Thanks.
I'd like to share a poem with you, if I may. That I think this is something Michael would want us all to remember. It's called I'm Free. Don't grieve for me, for now I'm free. I'm following the path God laid for me. I took his hand when I heard his call. I turned my back and left it all. I could not stay another day to endure pain, to laugh, to love, to work, to play. Task left undone must stay that way. I found the peace at the close of the day. If my parting has left a void, then fill it with remembered joy. A friendship shared, a laugh, a kiss, ah yes, these things I too will miss. Be not burdened with times of sorrow. I wish you the sunshine of tomorrow. My life's been full, I've savored much. Good friends, good times, a loved one's touch. Perhaps my time seemed all too brief. Don't lengthen it with undue grief. Lift up your heart and share with me. God wanted me now. He set me free. Michael and Sciume are my heroes. They both suffered through cancer like nobody's business. When Natalia was talking, I was reminded of a scene in Braveheart where he says, we all die, but we all don't really live. Michael lived, and he lived to the fullest. And that's why we can come here and share in his life together. That's why we can all come together and share in the hope, in the joy of the future. Because one thing that Michael had, he had the joy of the Lord in his heart. He realized his sin. He gave his heart and life to Jesus Christ, because it was Jesus Christ who died, shed his blood, and rose again. That's what gives us hope for tomorrow, for today. And so I want to leave you not only with that, but I want to leave you with something from a book called Tuesdays with Maury. And I think it's fitting for us. Because again, we're here to say goodbye, but not goodbye to the memories, not goodbye to the love. This is what he says. As long as we love each other, remember the feeling of love we had, we can die without ever really going away. All the love you created is still there. All the memories are still there. You live on in the hearts of everyone you touched and nurtured while you were here. And here's the key. Death ends a life, not a relationship. So we're here to celebrate, and we can, and we did, and the fullness of life of Michael's life was ever before us. And wow, all of you that shared, thank you. Thank you. And I'd like to share something from Sciume that she wrote down and would like to share with you all. I would like to say a special thank you very much to our church family, my co-workers, friends that have been there for me, as well as the entire family. Since the beginning of this 2.5-year-old roller coaster ride, losing my husband will always be the hardest thing I've ever experienced. One thing too, if I might interject here. When Michael came into Sciume's life, they both found their soulmate. And that's something that I think is apparent to all of us. If it wasn't for your love, support, meals, prayers, hugs, and encouraging words of hope, I couldn't have made it this far without you all. Michael felt the love and hope from you all also. It brought tears to his eyes knowing you cared so much. You all were my strength and gave me hope, and I love you from the bottom of my heart. In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, God bless you all, and thank you. Let's close in a word of prayer, if you would. Merciful God, none of us is able to fathom your vast designs or the workings of this universe, or to understand the numbered years that we have on this earth, but you do. And we trust your Holy Spirit to comfort in this time. Now we ask you to temper our hearts with gratitude, turn the thoughts of each one here with joy. And may Michael's memories ever linger as a garment of praise to lift the spirits of heaviness, add to our minds a meaning to existence realized in the simplicity and power of the Holy Spirit. Set before each of us Jesus Christ, your Son, our Lord, the sacrificial Lamb, that shed his blood for our sins, in order to secure the victory of heaven for us. And it is in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ that we pray. Amen. I thought it was fitting to kind of maybe change the order of service here a little bit, and for us to end with some music that we can all share together. So, thank you.
the corner of your smile, and all the little things no one will ever know. Like it was yesterday, will never fade away. Goodbye is just a word I will never say. You will never be forgotten. A million days could pass us by, but what is time but just a dream? Oh, I still feel you here with me. You're more than just a memory. Oh, you will never be forgotten. I can hold your hand, but look into your eyes, and when I talk to you, it just echoes in my mind. If hearts are made of dust, and if we fell from stars, I look up tonight and know just where you are. You will never be forgotten. A million dreams could pass us by, but what is time but just a dream? Oh, I still feel you here with me. You're more than just a memory. Oh, you will never be forgotten. And the world just keeps on going. It has no way of knowing that you're gone. You will never be forgotten. A million days could pass us by, but what is time but just a dream? Oh, I still feel you here with me. You're more than just a memory. Oh, you will never be forgotten.